Wednesday Night Reviews.
Alrighty, welcome everyone to Wednesday Night Reviews. I'm your host Konrad, and I'm here at FanExpo Canada 2019 for the 25th year with the wonderful Meredith Finch here to talk about. We're here to talk about her work as well as her experience in the comic industry. So thank you for agreeing to interview with us today.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So first easy question. How's the FanExpo been treating you for the first 2-3 days now?
It's fantastic. And honestly, Canadian fans are always so incredibly supportive of Canadian creators. This is one of my best shows and why I always do it every single year. I just would not miss.
And don't get too specific, but just so people know, are you in Southern Ontario? Are you in Saskatchewan? Sort of?
Southwestern Ontario.
Perfect. And when it comes to your work, how do you find sort of interacting with the fans? How do you find them when it comes to the reception that you get based on your different projects?
Like I say, fans are always fantastic, and they really are the reason why I continue to do what I'm doing, because you get such great feedback. You write a story and somebody finds a moment or a scene or a character in the story that really speaks to them and reflects an experience they've had in their life, and it's those kinds of things that fuel you as a writer, because I feel like the stories I write and the way that I develop my characters are a reflection of experiences that I've had within my own life.
Perfect.
And I love that I can have that reach out and it can touch somebody else in a similar way.
Awesome. So when it comes to your work for the last 5 or 6 years, you've worked on names from Wonder Woman at DC, you did Xena at Dynamite, I believe.
Yep.
You've got Rose,
Yep.
And now you're working on Valeria from Age of Conan.
Yes.
So you've worked on strong women that are, typically speaking, better than or equal to their allies. So Wonder Woman to Batman and Superman, Xena to Ares or Hercules from the show. When it comes to that experience you've had, how does that inform what you're writing now?
Well, first, I never think of when I'm writing one of those female characters that I'm writing a woman who's stronger than or better than her male ally. I always just think of them in the context of how would I react to a situation, or how would the women in my life react to a situation. So I'm much more coming at these characters from writing an authentic woman situation, and I feel like a lot of times women's strength is very different from a man's strength. We tend to be more emotionally in tune and more caring, and so I try to really focus on those things that I find strength for myself, and again, that my grandmother was a war bride, and my mother's a very strong person, but their strength is not necessarily a strength that takes away from the strength of the men in their lives. It's a strength that builds up everybody around them, and so that's the kind of thing that I try to reflect and that I'm looking to do when I'm writing those characters.
Okay. And when it comes to writing characters just like that, do you find that then writing someone like Wonder Woman, who has, 75 years of history, is a little maybe trickier than writing someone like Rose, who from the get-go you created?
I think they both have their benefits, because when you're writing somebody like Wonder Woman, you have to try to come up with something that hasn't been done before, or explore a part of her universe that in a different way than what everybody else has done. Versus Rose, where I can do whatever I want. But at the same point, with the Wonder Woman universe, there are guidelines and parameters of things. You know exactly what you can and can't do with the character.
Okay.
And there's somebody, if you decide you want to do something, might say, no, you can't. Versus Rose, it was unlimited what I could have done with her. And sometimes when you have so many possibilities, it's hard to figure out, to narrow it down to one possibility. So being unlimited can actually be a detriment at times to getting started versus knowing exactly what you can and can't do.
Right, because without the sort of constraints, it's a little hard to go, all right, where do I want to start?
Yes.
Awesome. And most recently, actually about a week ago, I believe, Valeria #1 came out, Age of Conan Valeria.
Yep.
Now, the world of Conan is extreme. Conan as a character is hyper masculine, super aggressive, just the biggest guy. Will Valeria sort of be the mirror to that? Will she be hyper feminine, or are you going to start her, just like you have with Rose, a very much so normal person?
Well, I think the great thing about the Conan universe is that Robert E. Howard really made all of his women like strong women, and Conan, who he is as a character, he never actually he is larger than life and sort of uber masculine. He never in any way kind of undermines or over sexualizes the women in those books. And so it allows for somebody like Valeria to come in, who was Conan really, like Robert E. Howard really set her up as Conan's equal, like the greatest swordswoman that has ever been in Hyboria. And so I took that, and it's sort of what I wanted. In that Red Nail story, it talks about her escaping because she killed somebody. And so that's when I looked at that story, I was kind of like, why did she kill somebody? Like who? What is she escaping from? And I really wanted to set up the beginning of her being, because I view her as a defender of women or defender of the defenseless. And so this is the beginning of that story, how she gets there. What are the things that happen in her life that push her in that direction and start her on that path.
Perfect. So can readers expect that by the end of this series, we will basically be able to go and pick up Robert E. Howard's Red Nails and more or less have sort of a clean story?
I don't think you're good. Like, she's much younger in this story. Like, this is sort of a teenage, early years Valeria, so there's still quite a bit of time frame, I think, from where we end to where that Red Nail story is. But I think you'll understand sort of more about why she is the way she is as a character, and then hopefully people will buy it and they'll say, Meredith, you need to write more, and we'll be able to continue that story.
Awesome. And previously you've actually gotten to write, I believe, Conan number 6. How was that brief sort of stint as a storyteller in that world? How did that sort of help inform you, or did that in some way guide what you're going to be doing?
It was a lot of fun, first of all, because I have male characters in my books, but I don't often get to write a male lead character because people view me as sort of the strong female writer. So it was a lot of fun to do that and just do like this great, awesome battle where he's just doing the Conan thing. Yeah. And I do think it influenced it a little bit. They're their own people and they're their own characters, and they come from different places, and those places, inform the decisions and the events that happen in their lives.
Right. What is sort of, with Valeria, so you've written, like I said, Wonder Woman, all these amazing characters, has writing them in some way made you hone your skill about the story that you wanted to tell with Valeria? Or because they're quite separate, is it just their own compartmentalized?
I think it's always different. Where I'm coming at when I approach a story or a character is there an idea or a theme within my own life that I want to explore and that I can use this character to explore? Because I think if you're not exploring something that, it's part of the reason why I think people respond to my stories is because there has to be an emotional or experience or journey that you're taking. And I do feel like, I certainly hope that everything I've done as a writer makes me a better writer, and that exploring all of these characters and the challenges and roadblocks that I experience when I'm doing these things make me better, because you have to push through and be more creative. So, but at the same point, each character is their own person, and I try to really figure out what I can do for them. Yeah. And that is meaningful for a reader.
Okay. And you've mentioned just so previously, other than Conan, you haven't had the chance to write many male lead characters. Is there one or a series of male lead characters that you particularly have thought, that would be a good character to write?
I have a lot of affection for Moon Knight because David worked on Moon Knight, my husband, and I think he has a lot of vulnerability, and I relate that a lot to, I think why David did such a good job with them is because they have a lot of, Dave's not insane, but I think there's a lot of that sort of internal angst that I would love to explore within that character. Okay. I find I'm much more drawn to the anti-hero than the hero type character.
So guys like Wolverine or Spawn,
Marvel,
perhaps.
if you're listening.
So previously, to do these interviews, I do like to do my research. So for reading a few of them, I've learned that sort of a dream or someone that you'd love to work with is Jay Lee. And ideally, you've mentioned just simply the idea of working with him. Is there an actual project in mind that you'd like to do, whether it's through Marvel, DC, Image, anyone, or perhaps creator-owned, if you could get his time?
If I was going to work with Jay, I think I would do a creator-owned project, because I think while I love his superhero stuff, I do feel like it would really lend itself to more of the fantasy fiction kind of thing that I like to do. And I know he's a huge fan of that kind of genre as well. So if I was going to do something with Jay, I think I would really want it to be, if all the stars aligned, it would be that.
Awesome.
Something that was a creator-owned project.
I do hope you get to do that, absolutely. And my last two questions, one is simply, when it comes to writing, especially in the medium of comics, what do you find is difficult to portray when it comes to, perhaps when you have to give direction to your artist?
I don't know that if anything's particularly more or less difficult. I think it, with just like a marriage or a dating relationship, you always have different synergy with all of the artists, and there are certainly some artists you work with that really can see inside your head and they know exactly what you envision when you write it on the page. And then there's some that maybe what you get back isn't exactly what you thought. But when that happens, I always find it just pushes me to be better and to make sure that I'm doing it in a way, maybe I'm revising dialogue or changing the story that it fits. Because if I didn't get that, then maybe I wasn't meant to get that. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know, I just always look, if it doesn't work out the way I thought it would, it's a challenge for me as a writer to make it fit within the story. And then sometimes you get blessed with somebody who just, that's it.
Wonderful. Then my last simple, easy question for all the folks out there. What do you want your fans to know? What do you want them to check out from yourself? Anything at all?
I have another new project coming out, maybe later this year, maybe early next year, from a small publisher, Cave Pictures Publishing.
Okay.
They put out the Light Princess book that I did, which was an adaptation of George MacDonald's fairy tale. And I have a graphic novel that I'm working on, which again I hope will come out maybe early next year, and I'll be doing a Kickstarter for this fall. And then of course, always I recommend that people pick up Rose. That story is finished now, and I think it's a really great fantasy fiction, example of what that genre is, and certainly I always call it my love letter to fantasy fiction. So I promote all the small publishers. Pick up the small stuff.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking your time to see us here on Wednesday Night Reviews and at FanExpo. I do hope the rest of your weekend is good, and that many people out there pick up Rose, pick out Age of Valeria, and tune in for your Kickstarter.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.